The Buzzards were somewhere out near Barstow when the podcast kicked in. They intercepted a cable from Cannabis correspondents Brian Jones and Patrick Ryder, fresh off their assignment covering the MJBizCon in Vegas. It's one of those large conventions that usually have drunken middle-class scumbags pawing over nonplussed cocktail waitresses and annoyed croupiers. Except these guys. This one is special. It's a whole new breed of up-and-coming entrepreneurs and cool cats whose business is marijuana. And business is good. It's a real weird one. Weed not only legal, but goddamn respectable. For the most part. What happens in Vegas gets spilled on this episode of $5 Buzz.
Step inside, lock the door behind you, make sure the towel is properly positioned. My name is George Cursar. I have the fan on. I've got the citrus spray. Pete Liska joins us as always, your co-host in Los Angeles. How are you tonight, Pete?
I'm great, man. We have a 1 month old as of tomorrow. No,
it's a milestone.
The 29th. It would be 1 month, and she's amazing, keeping us busy and keeping us on our toes. But I'm happy to be back making this amazing podcast, guys.
That's great, man. We're podcasting. Roger, you're podcasting as well. How are you tonight, man? You just
fantastic.
You're coming off a job, right? You just walked in the door, right?
Worked with multi-platinum selling artist Megan Trainor, the
I know her.
All About That Bass, in a commercial for Bingo Blitz, a gaming app.
Wow. Well, that sounds exciting. I'm just coming back from the Greenwich Library, Greenwich, Connecticut, and I heard this gentleman speak. His name, he's an author. His name is James McBride, and some of his work was made into a film by Spike Lee. Another one of his things he wrote was made into a mini series or a Netflix series. Roger, I think, is it Ethan Hawke? It's about an abolitionist.
Oh, it was Showtime, called The Good Lord Bird.
Right, and he is a very interesting guy. A room full of old Greenwich, Connecticut people and myself, and I asked him a question, and I knew he was a jazz fanatic, so I brought him a Sonny Rollins record, and I gave it to him, and the guy was fucking ecstatic, and I'm like, dude, if you want to come on our podcast, we'd love to have you. He was like, dude, I can't take this. I can't.
Nice, George. Yes.
So it was really cool, and this older woman's like, dude, he was so happy. I'm like, yeah, Anyway, I digress. But tonight we're not here to talk about Sonny Rollins or Greenwich, Connecticut, Blue Bloods and Sophistos. We're here to talk about pot again with our good friends, Pat Ryder and Brian Jones. Pat, how are you tonight?
Doing well, George. I'm just out here, supporting the 6th ranked Michigan Wolverines out here in Colorado.
They are 6th ranked and they're undefeated. And that's right. Got to say, man, I wanted to come on this podcast and say the Hawkeyes were previously ranked number 2. Brian, is there a chance they make it to the playoffs, or how are you feeling? What's going on in Hawkeye Nation tonight?
As I told my little league baseball team the other day, is everything is still in front of us. So that's what I'd be telling the Hawkeyes. So
has Michigan and Iowa played yet?
No.
Are they playing? A regular season game? Did they play each other this year?
They do not.
We don't punch down, George. We don't punch down.
All right. Well, that's enough about organized collegiate athletics. We're here to talk about pot. Most specifically, gentlemen, you guys had a road trip. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about this excursion you went. It was a convention in Las Vegas. So, Pat, is this like the first time you kind of went on the road since COVID, or have you been traveling? Maybe just tell us what it was like going to a place where a lot of people are converging. And, I personally haven't been to Vegas in 10 years. I'm sure a lot has changed. So what was the travel experience like, and what is Vegas like right now?
Yeah, man. I got to be honest, it is. So my last time on a plane for business was, that Friday in March, whatever that was.
Wow.
2 years ago almost. And that Friday in March, I was leaving Boston from one of our clients there. Kind of got on a plane, and it was this eerie feeling, right? Grocery stores were emptying. There was no toilet paper anywhere, all that good stuff. And then we just kind of sat around for a while. Not the first time I've flown, but this was the first time I've flown for business. And MJBizCon is where Brian and I were. It is by far and away the event of the year for the cannabis industry. It's a little bit different than your typical sales conference that a lot of folks would imagine. This is where everybody goes, CEOs, finance guys, bud tenders, light fixtures, the whole 9 yards. Everybody in the industry is there.
Is there a degree of like a Comic-Con fun to it, or is it all business?
Oh no, it is all shapes and sizes, business, fun, pleasure, lunacy, a little bit of stuff that we probably were accustomed to in the late 90s that did not go on social media, and things of that ilk. But I'll tell you, from a travel perspective, it was very interesting. The flight from Denver to Vegas is only about 2 hours. It's a real easy trip. And Brian convinced me kind of last minute. He's like, you got to be there, man. You got to be there for at least a day. So the week before, I went to get a flight. There was one seat on United. Of all the flights left that day, there was one seat left on United, and it was $2,000. And so I could not, and it didn't get me there in time. So I ended up making a layover in Salt Lake City and flew Delta. Got there and it was fine, and it was amazing, right? You got off the plane, you're in McCarran, you take the train out, you go to the Uber station, and as soon as you stepped outside the doors at McCarran, it was just this whiff of, okay, we're at MJBizCon. This is real. And it was busy, and everybody was there, right? You saw the people from Denver flying, and you kind of started bumping into people at the airport that you knew, and the energy just started to kind of build and spiral out of control. And then I waited because Brian had to turn around on his plane, and he almost died, pretty much. I mean,
no. Yeah. So I was supposed to take off. I took off at 7:20 on time. I was leaving Charlotte, and supposed to land around 9. I was going to go to my room, get a nice little nap in. 8 o'clock comes. I'm on my internet on the plane. It says we have 27 minutes left to land. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Pilot comes on. Apparently they couldn't get to one of the fuel pumps. There was fuel in it. They couldn't use the fuel tanks for some reason. So we weren't out far enough to like get to Dallas. So they turned us around to Charlotte. I end up getting to Vegas at 1. And it was a mad dash from there until 1 in the morning. It was crazy. Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
Would it be like the equivalent of the NAMM show every year? Do you know what that is for the music industry and everything? That's one of the largest conventions they put on every year. They have for forever.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure, Roger. I mean, this is, the convention center there in Vegas, it's a little bit off the strip and it's down the road. And so you kind of got to bus back and forth. It is a boon for Uber drivers. That is for damn sure. But they sold it out, right? So the first thing is the convention hall is loaded, and they use both sides of it. And there's just over, I would say, 1,000 exhibitors in the exhibit hall. And so if you think about 1,000 exhibitors, probably 5 to 6 people exhibiting in each booth, you're talking about 6,000 vendors there just kind of chilling out in the exhibit hall. Beyond that, I don't go to the exhibit hall, right? I mean, that's not why I'm there. That's not what I do when I'm there. I've been, and it's a sight to behold. The freebies are fucking amazing. You get your grab bag, you get stickers, you get some vape pens, you get all the swag that you walk around and kind of collect. But outside of that, they sold about 30 to 35,000 tickets, if I'm correct, for just the exhibit, to go to the exhibit. And just kind of anecdotally, we had a happy hour on Wednesday night, and we pre-sold. And when I say pre-sold, we had reservations for 200 people. On the to-go list coming out of that was 550 attendees. So those kinds of numbers were there. And that was day one. And day one's an absolute shit show. And I'll let Brian kind of tell some stories from the evening that was. But I would say
two quick questions on that. Two quick questions before you go too much further. Because first of all, how many years has this been going? Because it sounds like it's built up to this, or is this a new thing?
I think this was the 10th one, right, Pat?
I think so, yeah.
So I've been to the 3 of the last 3 in-person ones, and they're always in the fall or in December. Last year was all virtual. So MJ Biz Daily is a website. It's kind of related to that. They do a lot of publishing on there. You know, just cannabis news, company news. So they, you know, they're a big sponsor of this, and you know, like you said, 1,000 vendors. I haven't been to the convention hall since the first year, because what we do there is to go there to meet people, right? We're going there to meet executives. We're going there to meet in my case, brokers. He's going to meet underwriters. So it's really just a big social event. Like I say, you go from, you know, 9 a.m. to whenever you want to go to bed. I mean, I tried to be in bed by 1, and that was the case. But you know, I heard stories of everybody getting back by 5, and you know, they're crazy. These young bucks, I can't do it like them anymore.
Dude,
And is
Vegas.
Vegas
Las
is,
Vegas. Come on.
Vegas.
is Vegas
Vegas.
back in full swing for the, like, someone like myself? You know, COVID and travel restrictions and
Yes.
government lockdown, Vegas is back, right?
So I want to answer this one because I've been there on a fight night. That was by accident. We went on a bachelor party, so we were there on a fight night, and everybody said it gets crazy on a fight night. I've never seen it busier. I mean, it was crazy. You couldn't get, now I don't know if things are restricted because of occupancy, you know, if restaurants are restricted there. So I don't know that, but I mean, it's impossible to get a table anywhere. Yeah. So, and then if you're sitting in Cosmo, you always see the craziness, but it was just, there was a buzz about it. I think people are just really excited to get back together.
Yeah,
But
I would say from a capacity standpoint, amazing. Just the people, the flow, the energy was pretty cool. The fucked up part was you go to Vegas to escape from everything, right? There's any vice that you want is located in Las Vegas, and the casinos were enforcing mask mandates. I just found that an interesting juxtaposition of here's Big Brother watching in a place where Big Brother shouldn't see anything.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that,
you know, you could do a line of coke and do a bunch of you know, get a hooker for the night, but you got to wear a mask while you're doing it.
Uh-huh.
interesting. So what is you guys have any takeaways? Like, you know, you guys are veterans of the industry, and you know, you know, you guys see a lot, you know, a lot coming in. Was there anything new and exciting that you guys said, wow, this is something I should start paying attention to? Or maybe is there something you can share with folks that they could be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I think a couple things. One, states. You're going to see more and more states be doing this. I don't think we're going to get any traction at the federal level. I just don't see it. There's enough other things going on right now, and you
Right.
see, you know, what Schumer's doing and what progressives are doing. Everything's got to have equity interests, and all these things that are pushing the SAFE Act back, the MORE Act back, the Claims Act back, and they're getting rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. Meanwhile, you got one side of the aisle that has a complete control. It can't pass the most important things right now. So I don't think, I think the overwhelming sentiment that we got was state specific, and look for more and more states to continue to come online. Really in the Southeast, I think is probably the next big region. And the second part of this that I saw, and then I'll turn it over to Brian, is money is back, man.
Yeah.
Money is back. It's coming in. They see the opportunity. You know, the ills of the forefathers have kind of been washed away, and now we've got a new wave of cash coming in, which is going to grow this thing.
Real quick question, Nevada, where are they at as far as marijuana goes? I mean, are they recreational use in Nevada?
Yeah.
But they weren't first. I mean, they
No.
came on recently. That's like just a couple of years ago, right?
I think it was 17 or 18, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
The things I'll take away from it is, you know, there was a lot of hype at the beginning of the year for federal legalization. You know, I think that excitement's still there. I think anything short of, you know, there's never going to be a full federal legalization the way they wrote it up. But if they just said, hey, states take care of it, you know, SAFE Act gets passed, something, you know, people think something's going to happen because you just see the financings going through at a record pace. You know, big True Leaf Harvest deal closed, but you know, those are the big takeaways I'm seeing. Is just the excitement's still there. I know that the stock market hasn't been kind to cannabis over the last couple months, but you know, their company's building good fundamentals.
When I was in Florida, I remember talking to people that lived there, and it's not recreationally allowed in Florida yet. And yet, you can get a medical card, just like it was in the olden days. But even there, nobody gets you get caught with pot. Cops do not give a shit anymore. They just don't give a
Oh
shit
yeah.
cases anymore. That's what I'm saying. It's like
Yeah.
even places where it's still illegal. I think they just gave up.
You guys
There's
mentioned
a lot of that. Go ahead, Pete.
you guys mentioned there's a new publication that sponsors this thing. What was that called again?
MJBiz Daily is the name of the website. It's just a website. It has cannabis news. There's a few good ones out there that I follow at least.
It just kind of sparked some nostalgia for that magazine High Times. Are they still on the scene? Are they still involved?
I think
Is it
they're
still a
around,
thing?
but I haven't seen them. I don't go to High Times.
Do you guys remember High Times magazine?
No,
for sure.
I don't.
Everybody fucking remembers High Times. Come on.
I
And
remember
actually,
hearing about it.
I think that the
Cannabis
last thing I saw,
Cup.
yeah,
Yes.
right. The last thing I saw is High Times was coming out with their own brand, so they were actually going to become a producer.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. What's my question about that?
that was
Thank you for that, Pete.
Yeah,
Give me a giggle.
So, gentlemen, what's the future hold? What's going to happen? Are people going to become rich? Are we all going to be smoking pot everywhere on every street corner? What's happening?
Well, yes, we're all going to be smoking pot on every street corner, because if you look at what happened in Vegas, everybody was smoking pot on every street corner. It was nonstop. It was everywhere. Flour, vapes. People were passing out edibles like they were, Valtrex in the Jersey Shore house. It was just it was everywhere.
It's all but decriminalized. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it's all but decriminalized.
Yeah,
It's
and I
kind
think
of
you've got. Yeah, I think you got some states like South Dakota that are saying no, hard no, in some really kind of conservative states. And that's their right. That's their want. They can do that. But you asked the question, Roger, or you made the point about Florida. We had some pretty good conversations about what's going to happen in Florida. And it looks like rec is going to happen there in 2024. So, this is going to continue. If the feds can't get their act together, this is going to continue on a state-by-state basis. And who's going to get rich? There will be people getting rich. There will certainly be some folks making money. And I think the biggest takeaway isn't the state by state, because all these states are learning their lessons and operators are learning their lessons from the past. But now we're starting to see big firms come in and offer services, whether it's from the accounting side of things, whether it's from the legal side of things. You're starting to see some real expertise come into the CPG arena and treat them like a more mature industry than it ever was before.
Well, I mean, just, we got into this last time, and it was a fascinating part of the conversation when we were talking about if it's going to be like big tobacco and if there's going to be, your Winston-Salem types of companies coming in. But, I mean, Brian, what is happening on that front? Or, is Canada, for example, getting involved?
Sure. So yes, they're doing it in creative ways. There are a few people that'll invest in a Canadian company that can't touch U.S. assets. So the biggest one that I've seen right now is the people who own Circle K. I'll butcher the name. I think it's Alimentation Couche-Tard.
Circle K, the
Yes.
convenience store.
Yeah.
The 7-Eleven of
South America, right?
Well, Circle K, it's owned by a Canadian company. So this Canadian company has an investment in a company that has a brand in Canada, and then that company has a right to buy of a private entity in Canada that sells the brand to the United States, so they can put their name on a dispensary. I think you're going to see, you saw Canopy. These aren't, Canopy's a fully legal company in Canada. So, they're listed on the NASDAQ because they have no US assets. So they bought a right to buy on Wana brands. So they have a really good, stable, edible company that they have a right to buy on. Tilray did an interesting financing where they took out convertible debt on MedMen, and they bought the current holders out. So they have, that convertible debt, it's all convertible to equity. So what will they do? So there's, you're seeing some of the bigger players in cannabis that don't necessarily, win the game in terms of revenue production, because, those are the US MSOs. Those bigger players are using their war chests, like the Constellation brands into Canopy, they're using those war chests to buy futures essentially in cannabis. So it's become it's almost like a derivative market in cannabis where these companies are buying futures. So they don't know when it's going to happen. They need full federal legalization or SAFE Act passing, or if the exchanges change up their rules, it would really open up the game even more.
Within Canada, are regular people able to invest in their companies within their own country?
Yeah, I mean,
not in the U.S. stock market, but in other ways. Is there a Canadian stock market? I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's the Canadian stock market, the CSE. That's where all the U.S. MSOs list. So in the States, they're only on the over-the-counter market because the NASDAQ and NYSE have them excluded. They can't be on there because of the cannabis aspect. The ancillary lines like Weed Maps and Innovative Industrial, they can be on the U.S. exchanges because they don't touch the flower or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, you could invest in these U.S. MSOs if your broker allows you to trade over-the-counter stocks. And Canadians can invest, on the TSX for anything that doesn't touch the U.S. And then I'm sure their brokers allow them to trade on the NASDAQ and NYSE as well.
TSX
And I
is
think-
the Toronto Stocks
That's fascinating.
Exchange, for
Yes.
those that don't know. And Pat, I think there is the Vancouver Stock Exchange still pretty active in this. Are there a lot of names listed over there? Or is that kind of gone away?
Well, for tax purposes, there's a lot of folks that are quote unquote housed, or their corporate addresses in Vancouver, and that's a taxing issue more than anything else. Most of those MSOs and their assets are in the U.S., but they're housed in Vancouver for all intents and purposes. And then there's the Neo Exchange, which I know very, very little about. But that is where we're seeing more and more SPACs get listed from a cannabis plant touching perspective, and that's located in Canada as well.
Real quick, kicking down, gentlemen. MSO means multi-state operators.
Sure. Yep.
Okay, just double checking for people out there who may not know what that means.
Like me.
If we aren't getting granular enough, trust me, we can talk about this for days. So
It's crazy that it is like the Wild West from an investment perspective and a listing perspective, and like there's enough work here to keep the regulators busy for decades. And it's just, even since the last time we talked to you guys, it just sounds like things are just moving so fast. There's a lot of money around, a lot of money's been printed. I was always curious, from an investment standpoint, what would you guys look at? Not like a grower or a pure play cannabis. What about like lighting and irrigation and, maybe some farming, industrial products, like the ancillary economy around weed, right? Because yes, there's a product,
like people building hydroponic plants.
right? There's just so much around it. There's so much opportunity. Where would you guys be looking, whether it's testing, security, what have you? I'll let you guys explain, but there's just so much to it, right?
So I have a thought on that, and again, given my position in the industry, I don't actively invest. There's a conflict for some of the information that I might be privy to, and Brian kind of sits in the same boat to a certain degree. I prefer anything that's in the ancillary business that's listed in the U.S. exchanges, just from a financial transparency standpoint, right? So when you start looking at, the way that financials are looked at and reported, and all of the things that you think about the SEC kind of regulates, that's all there when you list on the NASDAQ. It's not necessarily there when you're CSE or OTC traded. So that's the first thing. I would look to the US exchanges first. Second, if you want to follow, because it's interesting, and these companies are fascinating. If you want to follow a company that's listed in Canada, take a look at the domestic issuer status, because now they're going to start being, they're going to have to report to the SEC. And so that financial transparency becomes more and more. And that was another takeaway that I think we took, that becoming a domestic issuer is happening at a more rapid clip because people are investing on the OTC. So you cross that threshold to have 51% of your investment coming on the retail side in the US. So if you get financial transparency, domestic issuer on the NASDAQ, I look there. Second, stay away from testing. There's just so much ambiguity and kind of shenanigans that has come up in the testing industry, whether it's been in California or New Jersey. We've seen it time and time and time again. I struggle with that as the go-to from an investment standpoint. Brian?
Yeah, so not an investment professional, but Patrick hit kind of the nail on the head. If you're going to invest in a multi-state operator, I would invest in one that's listed on the CSE that has to file under the SEC rules. That's the pot of those people I would look at for your safest investments, because you can look at how they perform financially, compare, and they're going to be doing everything like every other U.S. listed company. Ancillary lines, I think the equipment's maker, there's, Hydrofarm, Agrify, those are, Grow Generation is that one, I believe, as well. Those are the ones you want to look at for the equipment folks. There's a lot of technology coming on. I mean, if any of you have heard of Dutchie, Dutchie is a company that just took a $350 million investment. It was built and valued at $3.5 billion. I don't know what their financial situation looks like, but that's pretty crazy for a private company in this space.
What's their business? What is it?
That's a great question. It's like back office things, kind of like Weedmap. I don't know it well enough, but it's tech based. So payment systems, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's payment processing, credit card systems, back of house kind of
fintech, right?
It's not quite fintech. It's more in the line of like operational support. So you start to get about like an ERM or something like that.
Like a workday type of thing.
But it says right here, Dutchie creates technology that powers e-commerce and point of sale solutions for dispensaries.
Yeah. And I can get behind that a little bit, but that's a snoopback company, I believe. So, there's a lot of hype around that. But then, Weedmaps is out there. They just went went out in the public market this year. You could, but I think the equipment maker and then that pool of MSOs, Canada's tough. It's still an industry that's very highly regulated, very tough on public companies. It probably is going to have a lot of consolidation at some point. So that's kind of where I look at it. But again, I'm like with Pat
is even centered. Weedmaps, Brian, is even centered in the capital of in Southern California, where almost all financial epicenter exists, and all of the West Coast in Irvine, California. That's
okay.
That's funny.
Yeah, they're an interesting firm. They got a lot of smart people running around there.
Now, guys, it seems like this industry is moving so much faster than regulation or the powers that be, lawmakers can even get their hand on. It's just moving so fast. What is it like at the university and education level? I mean, obviously these companies are sprouting up and they need to staff it. Obviously people older than us, most of us are in our 40s and 50s here, people older than us probably aren't, starting over in the marijuana business. Is there like a funnel of talent and, people graduating from universities and going into this? Like, is there a pipeline? What's that look like?
Sure.
Have you guys seen anything about that?
I'll go first. I'll let Patrick jump on. So it's the exact opposite. So if you look at cannabis, it's just a business that has cannabis in it. So it's just like a consumer packaged good. So you're looking at jobs, typical financial careers, accounting, risk management, you can go down the list of what a normal company has. That's what they need. If you're talking about like the agronomy feature behind it, you have a lot of hobbyists who just kind of go in and grow their stuff. I do believe, I got to think Ole Miss has a program. I'm not sure about, these other places. University of Colorado certainly does.
Mississippi has a big marijuana mandate. It's the most bizarre thing to me because it seems like the most conservative and not open-minded state that I can think of.
Sure.
Workers had tobacco as their main product forever, so I that makes a lot of sense to me.
But they had a government grow project there forever, didn't they?
The DEA's only, I think, is only or one of two DEA permits to grow and study cannabis. So it's an interesting thing there.
Is that climate related? Is that because of its growth?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I read about it one time. You can read a little bit about it. But I did it like 5 to 10 years ago, underwriting a company because they were involved in that. So But the one thing I wanted to add to your question was you talked about age. There's a lot of older gentlemen, older ladies who, they're sitting in their office right now at 50, and now they're coming over to a cannabis company because they see the burgeoning market. So
Okay.
go ahead, Pat, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I was just gonna basically say what Brian said. There's a lot of people that it's now not taboo. So I mean, I've worked with CFOs that have transferred from Apple, from Lululemon, right? So from retail, consumer packaged goods, you see a lot of marketing guys coming over on the branding side to get involved in this. And I think it's not dissimilar from the executive suites that we saw in technology kind of in the 90s, right? It's cycling the same way, where a lot of people are saying, okay, I've made a decent living so far. Let me take a swing at something and get some equity in something that can blow up. And that's one of the things.
It may be fair to say the best of the best might end up over there, and it might become one of the better run industries out there. What a comfortable, cool place to land if you've got an established niche in marketing or tech or anything like all those places you're talking about. Very interesting, actually.
100%. I just think we're seeing kind of a shift over here, and there's a lot of flexibility. Also, it's pretty fucking cool, man. It's weed, so it's still that, right? It's still kind of on the edge. There's a little bit of cowboy feel to it, and people show up in whatever they want. The suits and ties stuck out like a sore thumb. Brian and I were at a meeting and we walked in, and I was like, you know what, fuck this. I am not wearing a jacket this time. I even texted Brian, I'm like, no sport coats, dude, no sport coats. And I was slacks and a vest and a shirt. So it wasn't like t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops. But when we walked by the boardroom of this entity, there were 5 guys in there fully suited up with the big double, Windsor knots in there. And you're like, those guys are douchebags. First time here, for sure.
Or bankers.
Yeah, exactly. Well, douchebags, bankers.
The sky's the limit, because it's like not many things. It's got the rarity and the aspect to it that it will never go away. It will continually evolve, and it will never go away. I mean, just won't. There's no, it's a train. It's a train that's moving forward and not stopping.
No, I don't think it's stopping. I think like Patrick said, I think there's just more states that are going to try to beat the feds. I think you want to be able to beat it. And I think if you don't, you're just going to be left behind even further. And now if you don't want it, if your state doesn't want it, more power to you. I assume that we'll probably have 5 to 10 that don't put it in there. They're just, it's not worth it to them. That's fine. I don't think that'll be in the South. Not all of the South, but we'll see. But yeah, like you said, Peter, it's all new, and it's all being built in front of us. It's like, like master builders on Legos, that Lego movie where it's all being built in front of you, and we're in the front row seat.
Well, one question I asked you last time, you and Sean, was if we were in a baseball game, a 9-inning baseball game, what inning we're in. You guys pretty much unanimously agreed that it was the first inning. Is that still the case, or are we moving along a little bit?
Yep.
Yeah, well, Brian's on mute because he was, in the blue dream before we got started. Yeah, it's still really early. It's still really early. I mean, we are probably moving into, Brian said the bottom of the first in the first game of a 7-game series, I think was one of the comments that he made in a prior life. Yeah. I don't disagree with that. I mean, we're starting to see kind of that iteration of M&A. A lot of that activity happened for the guys that are running out of money, but I don't think that necessarily puts us in game 2 yet.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're still in game 1, mid to late innings. It's moving faster now. You can kind of see more people, figuring to jump on the train. So we might get through, the next 3 to 4 years a little quicker and get a little more done. But I still think we're in the first game.
Do you feel like there's still a sense of, or maybe there never was, but non-greed, or is the greed and the big money going to come in and handle it like they do everything?
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead, Patrick.
Yes, I think there is still a sense of community out there. I really do. I work in a little bit of a different space than Brian does. We both come across the publicly traded companies, and that they're mandated to provide returns for their shareholders. That's their mandate. And so to that end, I think you see a lot of money, a lot of greed, and a lot of kind of pointing in that direction that you don't want to see. But in that middle and underlayer, I still think that there's a large sense of community, like in states like Massachusetts, where they limit the licenses to 3, or states like New York, when they come online and they're going to have social equity programs and micro business to be vertically integrated. I still think it's there, and it's going to provide opportunity for a sustainable business model for a decade or so before you see some of that large enterprise really push guys out. But the pioneers, they're still there, man, and they're still doing their thing.
I mean, that's a bit encouraging to hear, because it does seem like, how many revolutions of industry are we going to have, like the one we're witnessing with the marijuana industry? And you hope people learn from the past, or you hope it goes in a positive direction. But if you're putting a decade on it, I guess I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of this thing, at the end of the rainbow here is federal legalization. At some point, it's going to happen. And when that happens, and I'm not going to steal Brian's thunder completely, but when Amazon starts delivering this shit, I mean, they killed JCPenney's, they killed Sears, they killed Kmart, right? I mean, they killed huge companies with their business model, and there's nothing that's going to prevent them from doing that. I think the other side of it is when federal legalization happens, you're going to have significant tax issues that's going to bring the black market back too. And I think that is going to kind of cannibalize these little guys. I mean, the MSOs, the can of tourism companies will exist and thrive. But when all that happens, little guys are going to struggle for sure.
Yes, guys, do you guys mind taking a quick break? And then we'll come back and do round 2. Is that cool?
Sure. You got it. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Hey, we have a quick favor to ask. We want to get the word out, and the way to help is for you to subscribe to us on either Apple or Spotify. And it would be really huge if you give us a rating and a review. Much love.
And we're back, guys. We appreciate your time. We just ask that you do something simple. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We're on YouTube. If you subscribe, you'll get everything piped right into you directly. Same thing wherever you get your podcast, whether that's Spotify, Apple, and then you can hear all the great insight from our friends here. Brian Jones, Patrick Ryder, we're back.
And this is the third time around the sun for Brian. And the second time around the sun for Mr. Ryder.
No, you've been here for 3 times, haven't you, Pat?
I have not, George.
You're right.
I missed the Sean episode.
Roger, why did I dismiss your thoughts? Yeah, I apologize for that. Guys, it's really refreshing to hear some positive news. Just talking to you guys, you could feel the positive energy, the enthusiasm, the excitement, because I think no matter what side of the aisle or your politics or your thought process, people are just exhausted. We just need some good news. We want to have fun. We want to smile. I think everyone could agree that we're fucking sick and tired of bad news and just doom and gloom. And it's great that you guys are bringing a ray of sunshine into this. One thing, though, that it's hard to escape is this feeling of inflation, right? Everything's getting more expensive, whether it's gasoline, food, what have you. Everything is getting more expensive. And has that affected the marijuana business? Are you guys seeing like raw materials getting more expensive, employment, raw materials, transportation, what have you? How is that affecting the ecosystem?
Yeah, so there was already a cannabis tax, George. I mean, they were paying 3x for construction costs. They were paying 3x for property leases, right? And, the employment costs have kind of remained stagnant. And there was enough interest in the industry for a long time to kind of suppress wages. I think we'll start to see the same type of pressures in the cannabis industry that we're seeing across the board, especially as you get into things like delivery and you've got costs of gasoline going up. So the cost of delivery goes up. If ancillary service providers like a technology company that's hosting your website, that's hosting your payment platform, is it doing all that, is charging you more money, they're not just charging you more money. I mean, it all is the pass through to the end consumer. So I think we'll see those pressure for sure. But I want to go backwards for 1 second. And you were talking about the good news, the positive vibes. And I will tell you that on Wednesday night, I saw people that I hadn't seen in 2 years, and the hugs, right? The pure elation to be around people that have been involved in this industry from jump, and just getting back to a sense of normalcy, throwing back 4 beers in a half an hour with your buddies that you haven't seen in a minute, and then being like, oh shit, can't do that anymore. Forgot about that. That was awesome. I mean, Wednesday night, just the pure joy, getting out there, seeing folks you haven't seen. It was really amazing. We need more of that. We need more of those moments, I think, as a country, just outside the industry, just getting together and blowing off some steam. I know that first night was I think at Tao, and big shout out to the guys at Tao. Thank you very much. They did their thing, got us some seats when seats were hard to find. So thanks,
Nice.
guys.
Those guys do a great job, and second to none, really, right?
Say right,
World class.
But they had the Diplo concert there. And people were at the Diplo concert. And then I think on Friday night they had a Machine Gun Kelly concert. And it was just a jump off. The place was packed, and the energy was all positive. And so Vegas did a great job of hosting. I think all the venues did a great job of really bringing that positivity. You didn't sit there for 25 minutes waiting for a table, getting pissed off because your server was brand new, it hadn't been trained. It was legit. I had a really good time. So anyways, back to inflation.
Yeah. The thing I would add is after we left Pat's party, his company's party, we were walking back from Paris to the Cosmo, and as we were walking, we're all just laughing, having a good time, and we just love Vegas, man. And just got out there. I don't know if it was so much Vegas, it was any different than last time, but just standing there and just everyone's there having a good time, and everybody's just intermingling, and it was just, the excitement of it was intoxicating.
You felt like a human being again, right?
Yes, 100%.
Sorry, Roger.
How many people were stoned that you ran into?
Stoned?
Yeah.
Oh,
Roger, I didn't have a drop to drink all week, and I had a great time.
Or,
you were, exactly. Yes. How many people were stoned? 110%.
Was there any representation from what you guys saw of, is the psychedelic movement starting to get more traction? Is it starting to get more acceptance, whether it's like mushrooms or some other products?
I watched DMT.
I didn't see any there, but I didn't see any, and I didn't see any people there. But no, I think it sticks to cannabis that week. That movement is coming, right? I think it's in a different position than cannabis. People are much more open to cannabis than I think they are of magic mushrooms and those other drugs. So the psilocybin research that's being done is more of a biotech-y feel. There's some microdosing going on that they're doing some tests on, or, trials. Those are trials. They want to use that for anxiety and depression and weight loss. It's supposed to be the magic drug, right? So, but I didn't see anything last week.
So, and that's a completely different discipline. It's kind of not correct to commingle that stuff, right? Psilocybin is its own sector, and it really has nothing to do
in general.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think from our perspective, we see a lot of the same folks that had early success in the cannabis industry starting to create that kind of movement in the psychedelic industry as well. But to Brian's point, it's much more geared towards medical use just because of the stigma around it. I mean, I haven't seen or touched a mushroom since I was on the St. Lawrence River. So that's, but other stuff I got.
Yeah, I think, the one thing, we were talking about this earlier, but one thing I find interesting is serial entrepreneurs are, building a company in 2014, selling it in 18, built another company to 2020 or started something, and now they're on like the third iteration. So if you go from I built a cannabis company to I built a somewhat cannabis company to then they'll go to mush. I mean, these people just kind of seem to find a way to get, keep rolling it over.
Yeah, we have mushroom tea about once a week around here. So yeah, it's
good for the soul, man. I mean, we've got some of the fellows that subscribe to that, sensory deprivation. I'm about it, but I'm just not about it.
Yeah, copy that. It's funny, looking to do a ayahuasca ceremony with a friend of mine here coming up soon, and they're all over the place over here in Southern California, or Southern and Northern California, I should say. They're popping up more and more now. I know illegal, so, but don't follow me, FBI. Um, but they are happening with more frequency.
Sure. And I think that's a kudos, and that's where social media can be a good thing, right? You're spreading the word, you're getting it out there. There's a little bit more acceptance. You feel it's a little more normalized because you have access to people in Northern California from LA or in New York, and you can kind of create those communities around it. Not dissimilar from the onset of the cannabis community either.
Our fellow podcaster, Joe Rogan, whether you like him or not, has been a big proponent of that, of hallucinogenic, I guess, partaking, shall we say. And it's growing a little more mainstream, I think.
For sure.
Yeah, I follow Tim Ferriss, and he's big into that. He's talked about it on his podcast before. It'll be interesting because I think, for all marijuana is and isn't, I don't think it'll end up being a medical, a medical miracle. It's going to be more of a mainstream thing like alcohol, right? Yeah. But I do think the psilocybin stuff, being administered correctly, so you don't have a bad whatever. I think they need to study it, because if it does have, positive, positive things for it, I mean, then maybe we should be using it more. But we try to stick to. I try to stick in the lane of cannabis because the business is growing, and I think from everything I hear is all the cowboys that were in cannabis 5-10 years ago are now getting into that.
Cool, man. Well, guys, we appreciate your time. I know we want to be mindful of your time. I know you guys gave us Dutchie. Maybe we'll just go around the horn real quick. Brian, is there anyone else that should be on our radar? Can you give us an early, I don't know if it would be a tip, but like someone to follow? Like if we were treating this like college football, there's a hot shot freshman we want to keep our eye on. Maybe he'll pop up in the first round of the draft at some point. Who you looking at?
I think the three things I'd be looking at is, how does the True Leaf Harvest deal perform, right? They'll probably be posting their first full quarter together first quarter of next year. I'm not sure it'll be this year. Actually, no, I think it'd be close to 10-1, but that'll be something to watch. I think True Leaf has been an unstoppable beast in Florida. Just opened up their 100th dispensary. They sold, and I want to get this right, I can't remember if it's the state of Florida or if it's True Leaf, but 62,000 ounces of flower in a week. Jeez. It's on a report that they have every month. I think it's OMMU in Florida. Read it. It's amazing. 652,000 patients in Florida, 20 million people. That market's going to be amazing. Anything that touches Florida, I would look at. I have a soft spot in my heart for a company called Jushi, just because they have one of 5 licenses in Virginia, and their territory is right outside of DC. I think that's another fun one to watch. And then going outside, I would watch Dutchie, just because I got to see if they're worth what people are saying. That's gonna be a fun one to watch.
Interesting. Pat,
yeah,
what do you
I like Dutchie. I know the guys that kind of are behind that, and they've had a lot of success in other enterprises. I'll let people do their own research and make that call, but they have been uber successful. So I do like Dutchie. I would say that there's a publication out there called New Cannabis Ventures, and it's a deal tracker. And so it tracks and kind of goes through all the deals that are out there, public and private, as they're announced. And you can kind of get a semblance of who's doing roll-ups, when real private equity money is coming into the market, And those are the kinds of things that really interest me, not necessarily the current players, because we all know who they are and you can use standard fundamentals from an investment standpoint. But from a what's next, I really like New Cannabis Ventures to track the deals and to see what's coming. And then on
Is
the
that a
Neo,
subscription-based product?
it's just out there.
You can follow them on like Twitter or something like that and get the info piped in.
Yeah, I'll take your word for that. I just get the Google alerts. I'm 45, George.
Still having fun.
Still having a good time. And the last thing is, there's a SPAC market, right? There is a SPAC market out there. They've raised just north of $1 billion to buy cannabis companies up on the Neo. And as those things come live, I mean, there's some deals that have come, some deals that have fallen through. But, like the Parallel deal, for example, just kind of went away. But there are some guys up there that are raising money to do roll-ups, and following that, I think, is interesting as opposed to just kind of looking at what's out there now. I think that's the down the road insight that we're all talking about. From a MJBizCon kind of wrap up summary, I just want to say that there were people there that looked like they had not been out of the house in years.
Like this.
And they probably had not been out of the house in years, and they just blew the top off. We saw guys smoking ecstasy. We saw guys blowing lines on the bar. I mean, it was nuts. And it was awesome to see.
I, for the record, saw none of that. I was in bed nice and early, but I'm sure
and for the record, I flew in on Wednesday and flew out on Wednesday. I did not partake, but my eyes were privy to some stuff that I probably should not have seen.
Yeah, I made sure to be at the tables by 11 to get away from all that craziness. I'd rather lose money than be up till 5 a.m. Oh my goodness.
Night of the Living Dead. Holy jeez.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'll take away from last week is there's some really good people in this industry. Relationships. I mean, just starting this new venture, just the relationships that I made with my own team, and then through them and through me, just the people we've met. And last week, just met some really great folks. So the industry keeps getting better, more mature. It's going to be fun to see who goes legal next. My vote is not my vote, but my guess is Pennsylvania. That's
a pretty educated big guess, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's not like it wouldn't be worth it for all of us to just take a little shot, throw a little money in the middle, and
okay. You want to? Okay, let's take out Pennsylvania. Oklahoma. I'll throw Oklahoma.
What's available out there? Florida's obviously on the table, but
yeah,
Florida.
Texas. I think Oklahoma is like if it's like wildcat days of oil. I think there's something like 2,000 licenses out there, so it's going to be survival.
Yeah, they're writing licenses on napkins right now.
Yes.
I mean that's a lot relative to the population of the state, isn't it?
Well, you got to think about it, George. I mean, it's not just like a retail. There's not going to be 2,000 dispensaries. These are all kinds of different cultivation licenses and what have you. So it runs the gamut, but they are passing them out like Tic Tacs. That's for sure.
Yeah,
that's great. The Sooners. Well, Roger, you want to take us out? You got anything for the gentleman here?
No, I was just looking at the states. The map there, the ones that are getting closest to what looks like legalization. And it looks like the dark green represents those that are kind of mixed, heading towards legalization. Looks like New Mexico. It looks like North Dakota. That's crazy. And then I guess Minnesota.
Right? Yeah, I'm shocked Minnesota hasn't. Correct something Patrick said earlier. He said South Dakota. I think he meant a different South, but South Dakota passed Mad NREC in the same election, which I think
it was North Dakota. My bad. Yeah. Is it Dakota?
No, I think South Dakota did it the best. Don't mess
black.
around.
Yeah, they're in the black. So they're
Don't mess around. But how they went legal was essentially they put it on the ballot and said, here's what we want to do, and they let the people decide. I think that's amazing. So
and all of New England's about ready to pop too. I think so.
Yes, the fun one to watch is where Brian is in the Carolinas. Who goes first, North or South? Because one of them is going to go, and then the Hilton Head versus Myrtle Beach battle will begin.
Well,
And
those
that'll
are
be
both
fun to
South
watch.
Carolina, so you could
Whatever,
say
who cares?
North Carolina.
we got to work on your
When you start
geography.
talking north and south, clearly I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
North Carolina's dark green. South Carolina's light green. So
South of Michigan is where Ohio State is. They own you.
Ooh.
North.
George, you were talking about first round draft picks. How many of those were 4 interceptions in a game against a Purdue team? Sorry. Never mind. We're veering off course. It is getting a little ugly here.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Guys, we appreciate your time. We appreciate your insight. This is fantastic stuff. Can't wait to have you guys back again. And Roger is going to just take us out with some words of wisdom. Raj.
Thanks,
this
dudes.
generation rules the nation with version. Music happens to be the food of love. Sounds to really make you rub and scrub. Thank you for listening to this last episode of $5 Buzz. Please remember to like us and or subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, ideas for future episodes or other people to interview, please email us at $5Buzz, and that's FIVEDOLLARBUZZ@gmail.com. And we'll get back to you just as we get done, as we pass the Dutchie upon the left-hand side.